A boy of 12 saw his first funeral procession when his family had just moved from Arizona to a small town in eastern Kentucky. Cars pulling off the road for a funeral to pass confused him. When he asked his dad why they pulled over, his dad said, "It's just what we do here." Appalachians have a unique view of death and dying. Death is the same, but somehow different in this region. James Still, who made his home in eastern Kentucky, wrote in his poem Heritage, "I shall not leave these prisoning hills, though they topple their barren heads to level earth, and the forests slide uprooted out of the sky. Though the waters of Troublesome, of Trace Fork, of Sand Lick rise in a single body to glean the valleys, to drown lush Pennyroyal, to unravel rail fences, though the sunball breaks the ridges into dusts and burns its strength into the blistered rock, I cannot leave. I cannot go away."
Coffee grows on the white oak trees, river flows with brandy. I've got a gal who's sweet and kind, sweet as sugar candy, swing and turn. Jubilee, live and learn. Jubilee. If I had no horse to ride, I'd be found a-crawling up and down this mountainside, searching for my darling, swinging.
What makes us rich existential beings, that we can investigate, that we can have this kind of conversation. What is death? And that you can say, what is death? And I can say, yeah, what is death? And that question may in fact be some kind of taste of death.
First dilemma I ever experienced in medical school was one patient who had tried to commit suicide, who had shot herself and didn't succeed, so she was in the ICU on life support, lots of resources being used, and she was, had tried to kill herself. Another person in the very next room who I was also caring for had leukemia, and very young. They were both about the same age, in their 20s or 30s, and just trying to figure out that dichotomy of somebody who chose to end their life and another person who was just being, saddled with this horrible disease. There's patients that survive or graduate, they call it graduate from hospice. I hate to be cynical, but I think most of those times it's misdiagnosis. Most of the time, if we see that somebody has a cancer that's incurable, those people die unless it's been misdiagnosed. There are amazing stories of people living a much longer period of time, and we have some patients that are, years and years, with palliative care anyway. We have some 10-year survivors, 12 years, 14, and that also depends on their support systems and their willpower. But I think if they truly survive something that's incurable, it may be a misdiagnosis.
The two times it was really hard in my life was when it was my mom and dad. When it was, I guess you could say, imminent death. They were both aware, and I was also. But it is rather taboo to sit down sometime, especially from a counseling aspect. But people are becoming more progressive in that way to let their wishes be known. Years ago, it was like people would stop and, schedule around a week probably for a death. And now it's people are wanting to do it in a less visitation. They're doing it more at their convenience. We still have quite a few services in a year, and it's happened since I've been in business, but still where there's snake handling services. And I respect the people's religion, but it still catches you a little bit.
What do they do in their service? What do they just kind of get out of the way?
Right, we just conducted as any other funeral, and the ministers or people of the congregation that are involved in the funeral handle the snakes on the pulpit, and we just go ahead. It's conducted as any other service. Oh, I don't know if I could do the work. I guess I could in an urban area where you don't know people, but I have to and say I've received a great deal of fulfillment, and I've been able to be with my family, my parents. I worked with my parents, I worked with my wife, all of our children have helped in a family business, and it's just been a mountain undertaking.
High on a mountain, lonesome high, the whippoorwill sings its lonesome cry. Gone to the mountain for to die, away with my soul away. High on a mountain, frosty morn, creeping through the shocks of corn. I was lonesome dead, I was lonesome born, away with my soul away.
I always took pictures, I guess, but I didn't think anything about being an artist. There weren't any artists in my immediate family, and I was a French major in college. Even though I had no training, my main strength is my eye, so he went for that, and I illustrated a book. Counting on the Woods, which I got a big advance for, and I went in the woods and found 35 pictures. I did go into the schools, local schools, and talk about making a book. And in one class, there was this really cute kid. He had red hair and he was quiet, but he asked a really good question. So I went and asked Kyle, his name was Kyle, if he would want to work with me on this. But he was small for his age. Originally they thought it should be a 6 or 7 year old. But Kyle was perfect. And he was so much fun. We only went out like 4 or 5 times. And each time we got 1 or 2 pictures that worked. When he got older, he got in with the wrong crowd. And he was always small for his age. And right after he graduated from high school, he overdosed. Total. It was a big tragedy that he did that, and a big loss for the family. So anyway, the family was used to me photographing them. So at the funeral, which was at their home, they were comfortable with me taking a picture of them taking the casket from the home up to the hillside in the back of their pickup with family members. I had to use a truck to get to the cemetery, which is on a hillside that they can see from the house. And I have pictures of that too. Kyle's great-grandfather, Dempsey, died. He'd been sick for a while, and this was something that was coming, but they decided they wanted to honor him by getting a horse cart, and put the last 2 miles of the ride from the church to the cemetery. Well, I did another, more recently, Kyle's great uncle died unexpectedly of a massive infection, and he was a bulldozer operator, was one of his main jobs, and he loved his bulldozer, so they arranged for the bulldozer to pull the casket from the house. I think people should celebrate the person's life. I would rather take a picture of a funeral than a wedding, because in a wedding there's so many expectations and prescribed things you're supposed to take a picture of, and I'm more comfortable being free to see what I see and take a picture of it.
So, do you do this all the time, clean up this cemetery, or just get hired to do this one?
Yeah, lady that takes care of the place hired me to take care or do the mowing here, and her and a couple others, I guess, take care of keeping flowers and stuff cleaned up. This is my first year doing this cemetery here.
It's a pretty hard job.
It's time consuming, you know, the whoop-de-doos all through the graves, you know, get your back hurt and whatnot, and it takes a while to get done, about 12 hours altogether on this cemetery with weed eating and blowing all the tombstones off and so forth. This month has been the busiest because everybody wants to get everything done before Memorial Weekend, you know, and keep it looking good from week to week. You know, it's got to be kept up by somebody.
That's right. That's the sad part. One day it won't be kept up for any of us, will it? Eventually.
Well, I don't know. You know, hopefully someday none of us will be here, be better in a better place.
I'm into that.
Yeah.
How long have we been doing Memorial Day flowers? This makes our 11th year.
You generally have a lot of business doing this?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. we had a family here the other day. They bought like $350 worth, and I was just like, you know, I mean, it wasn't about the sale. It was amazing to me that they had that many people that they were going to honor that way, spend that kind of money and honor. You know what I'm saying? I don't mean that disrespectful, but $350 is a lot.
My name is Lisa Conley, and my shop is just a unique gift shop. They want, the majority of what I found is they'll come in and say, my mother loved pink, or might like black, wildflowers, whatever, and we try to accommodate that. Whatever they tell us, whatever colors, whatever kind of flower that family person loved, that's what we do. So, I mean, I even did my father's. My father passed away a year in February, and my mom and me actually did his. So, and that was emotional, very emotional. And it's not because of the money. It's, you know, it's loved ones. And you should respect and honor. And I'll tell you, the biggest conversation that I've had with most people is the theft that's gone on in the cemeteries. The destruction, there's vandalism, bad theft. We had a little, it's actually over here somewhere, it has an angel on it. And I've had several people want that saddle, but they said that they knew it would be stolen the very next day. And that's sorry. That's really, really sorry. I've had, you know, just like I said, the fear of buying a really nice arrangement. People are getting away from that. And they're actually also, like on a shepherd's crook, they'll wire stuff to it or wire it to the vase or to the monument because of the theft.
Well, it all comes back to the number one cause of all thievery in most of this area, not just this county, this area. All has to do with the drug problem.
A thief has struck a cemetery in Elliott County, Kentucky, but the crime spree could be coming to an end. A woman is under arrest, facing felony charges.
Working down her fever to get everything mowed and trimmed, weeded, and all nice and cleaned up. And, I had been down there and at different times off and on, and had came home, or came back to the office and went home. Received a call on the funeral home line that a lady I knew personally called me and said, you need to come back down here immediately. He said, the people come in here from all over the country, all out of state, in state, cousins, nieces, nephews of the different deceased, and come and visit graves, decorating graves, and so forth and so on. I mean, from all over the place. One of the graves in question, and they called me to come down there and said that this lady had a little boy with her, a little small child with her, said that taking stuff off of some graves down here.
Flowers and decorations stolen, an act that's left the cemetery owner disgusted.
We had about 66, I believe it was, or so, bronze faces stolen down there, along with my cemetery got here Forest Lawn and Moorhead got hit, and one or two little family cemeteries out in the county got hit. Had vandalism, had bronze veterans plates was taken up just to go get a few dollars from some of these salvage places that buy them, would risk buying them.
I mean, borrowing someone's dead and stuff, I mean, it's a shame people are doing like that.
I don't know how anyone could live with herself knowing that they had done that.
We're going to do is die someday. And most of the people that you talk to are afraid of death. I'm not afraid of death, but most of the people I talk to are.
Seeing a lot of people die, if I ever were to say one thing that almost everybody goes through at some point, except, I must say, except some of the Buddhists and some of the really, really together people, is a bit of a fear.
I teach the course on Sociology of Death and Dying, and it was one of the few courses that I said I would never teach. But in 2001, my oldest daughter was killed in a single car accident. And so that kind of turned my life upside down, to say the least. And as it turned out, the only thing I cared about reading or thinking about, not because I necessarily wanted to, but I just had to, was death. So after a couple of years, I thought, well, I'm reading so much about this, I might as well teach that class that I never wanted to teach. And for some reason, that particular daughter of mine, my oldest daughter, she wanted to talk about death when she was really little. I can remember her asking questions and I would shut her down because my fear of death was so extreme and so unhealthy. I can remember her asking and I would say, you don't have anything to worry about. You're going to be a very old woman when you die. Usually this was when I was laying down with her to get her to sleep. I would get up, turn on the television, turn on the radio, turn on every light because I couldn't deal with that fear. There was a time when every morning I woke up and I prayed to be dead. And I absolutely wanted nothing more than to die for probably at least 2 years after my daughter died. I don't want to die now. When I was first diagnosed with having thyroid disorder, and which most people don't die of thyroid cancer, but you know, when you hear the word that you might have cancer, which I didn't, but there was, yeah, I still had a fear. I've had some students that had some unusual experiences. Like one woman said that her family does still take pictures of people after they're deceased, and she brought those pictures in. I had one student who actually dug the grave for one of the family friends, and that was it was in a family cemetery, and he and 4 or 5 of his buddies actually dug the grave. I think it's important for us to confront this fear of death. And if we don't, then partly we don't know how to deal with our own death. That may or may not be an issue. But we don't know how to deal with our grief when other people around us die, and we don't know how to help people through that process of dying. You know, one of the problems is when one of these students, they have somebody die in their family and nobody knows how to talk to them. They want them just to shut up and get over it and move on, and they give them about 2 weeks to do that. And if they haven't moved on, then they say you really need to go get counseling. They may or may not need counseling. Probably what they need is just to be able to talk about it and to be able to grieve. I think it's developed as part of industrialization because we've been so removed from death. Like our food system removes us from death. And I talk about that, and I show films where, we're killing animals for food because we're separated from that. There's few students who've grown up on a farm or killing animals or hunting. Their perspective is a little bit different. But we've been separated from that, and then we hand off our loved ones' bodies after they've died. We hand those bodies off to a funeral industry. We don't know what happens. We have no idea.
I think there's the fear of death from the person's standpoint because it's entering into the unknown. We all have faith, or so many of us do. So many of us who are Christians, we have faith, but you know, and you can see it in the media. There's a yearning to have some kind of testimony from the other side. I think another factor is that many people have unfinished business. Even the person who's very, very old and very, very sick has the unfinished business of affirming their loved ones who are the next generation or the generation to follow. They want to encourage them. They just want to see some more. Very often there's the unfinished business of words that need to be said, words of forgiveness, words of encouragement. One is to remind people that what they feel today isn't necessarily what they'll feel tomorrow, and that there's no such thing as a bad feeling. And so sometimes a family member will feel guilt at the death of a loved one. I could have done more, or if only I had done this, they would be much more at peace.
The question, which I think speaks to death, is it possible to just stop in a moment, just stop completely, where the past just ends? From a logical perspective, we can say, yeah, if we continued forever and there was no death, there would be no meaning. We would just go on and on and on and on. And so the things that give meaning in our life are loss. And death, of course, is the biggest loss, the loss of the body. But I don't think there's anything to be afraid of. I think there's more, dying is probably more something to be afraid of than death itself. Do you know what I mean? Like the pain of dying, the discomfort in dying. People carry sometimes years and years and years of, daughters don't talk to fathers, ex-spouses don't talk to each other, and they go to their grave with that kind of contracted anger. And I think to help people forgive and let go and allow is one of the gifts that one can offer somebody who is in pain or dying. In our culture, we get pretty crazy. People enshrine, people want to be frozen so that they can be brought back, and I think that misses the point, though. And I think that reminds us that there isn't a going back or a fixing or solving. It's going, that we're moving forward, and that's a joyous thing, I think. Yeah, but freedom. There's freedom in that.
Half a mile to the end of the line. Half a mile to the end of time. Half an hour to the storm hits. Half an hour to the movie quits. Close our eyes and dream. Close our eyes and dream. Half a mile to the mile marker. The sun is coming up, but it's getting darker. Days are short and the nights are long. Drove 100 miles to write a song. Close our eyes and dream. Close our eyes and dream. To get some air, half a ticket to get somewhere, half a mile to the end of the line, half a minute to the end of time.